the way they thought about the game. This is when we see the very first chess books being written. Players started to systematically analyze the game. They studied openings, which they called tab-a, or battle array. They would analyze different setups and the plans that followed from them. This is the ancient equivalent of opening theory. Players were no longer just making moves. They were studying patterns and developing a deep, theoretical understanding of the game. We also have records of the first true chess masters. Players like Al-Adli, Al-Razi, and later the great As-Suli were famous throughout the Arab world for their incredible skill. As-Suli was so good that even today, a particularly difficult chess problem is sometimes called an As-Suli's diamond. These players wrote books, analyzed games, and even developed the first chess puzzles. They were the first professional chess players, in a sense, making a living from their talent and knowledge. Another key development was the creation of a system for classifying players by skill. The best players were called aliyat, or grandees. This is the first known example of a player rating or ranking system. It showed that the community was taking the game seriously enough to want to know who the best players were and to measure their relative strength. They even held tournaments, or at least organized high-stakes matches between the top players, which drew huge interest. So, the Arab world's contribution was absolutely massive. They took the strategic game from Persia and turned it into an intellectual discipline. They gave us the first books, the first opening theory, the first master players, and the first rating systems. They treated chess with a scientific and academic rigor that it had never seen before. This period cemented chess's reputation as a profound mental challenge, a reputation that would follow it as it began to seep into its next major destination, Europe. Okay, so the game is huge in the Arab world, and now it's knocking on Europe's door. Chess primarily entered Europe through two main points of contact. The first and most important was Islamic Spain, or Al-Andalus. Starting around the 10th century, the game crossed the Pyrenees Mountains from Spain into France. The second major route was through Italy, thanks to trade with the Byzantine Empire and Arab merchants in Sicily. From these two footholds, the game began its slow but steady conquest of the European continent. Initially, the game was a curiosity, a game for the wealthy and the clergy. It was often carried by crusaders returning from the Holy Land, or by merchants and diplomats. For a long time, the church actually tried to ban it. They saw it as a form of gambling, especially since players often wagered money on the outcome, and they thought it was a distraction from religious duties. There are many records of bishops and kings issuing edicts against playing chess, but of course that didn't really work. The game was just too compelling. As chess spread through Spain, Italy, France, Germany, and England, the Europeans started to get impatient. Remember, they were playing Shatranj, where the counselor, or farzin, moved only one square diagonally, and the elephant, or alfil, moved exactly 2 squares diagonally, jumping over the first. The pawns could only move 1 square forward, no initial double step. This made the game incredibly slow. The opening phase could take forever, just to get the pieces into the fight. Europeans, it seems, wanted more action, and they wanted it faster. So, they began experimenting with the rules. This period, from about the 12th to the 15th century, was a time of many different local variations. In some places, they gave the pawn an initial 2-square move to speed up the opening. This was a huge change. In other places, they tinkered with the king's move, maybe giving it a one-time leap to get it to safety faster. The game was in a state of flux, with no single, universally accepted set of rules. This desire to speed things up is a key theme of the European adoption of chess. They weren't just passively receiving the game. They were actively shaping it to fit their own cultural temperament. The slow, methodical buildup of Shatranj didn't quite fit the more dynamic, aggressive mindset of medieval Europe. They wanted to get to the mid-game, to the tactical clashes and battles as quickly as possible. This period of experimentation is fascinating. It's like the game was a living organism, evolving in different ways in different environments. A player from Italy might have been playing a slightly different game than a player in England. But all these small changes were building toward a massive, revolutionary shift. Europe was setting the stage for the birth of the game we play today, a version they would call Mad Queen's Chess. Alright, this is it. This is the moment. Around the end of the 15th century, probably in Spain or Italy, all those little rule changes that had been bubbling up across Europe finally coalesced into what we now call modern chess. This was not a gradual evolution, it was a revolution. The game was transformed so dramatically that they even gave it a new name in some places, Scacchi alla Rabbiosa in Italian, or Mad Queen's Chess. And the reason for that name was the single biggest rule change in the history of the game. The weak counselor, the Fazin, which could only move one square diagonally, was suddenly replaced by the most powerful piece on the board, the queen. This new queen combined the powers of the rook and the bishop. She could move any number of squares in any direction, horizontally, vertically, and diagonally. This was an absolutely insane power boost. The game went from a slow, grinding strategic battle to a dynamic, tactical whirlwind overnight. A single piece could now dominate the entire board and deliver checkmate from across the world. But that wasn't the only change. The old elephant piece, the alfil, with its weird two-square diagonal jump, was replaced by the bishop we know today. The bishop could now sweep down entire diagonals of any length. This gave the game a new long-range dimension. Suddenly, controlling the long diagonals became a critical strategic element. The combination of the new queen and the new bishop completely changed the geometry of the board. And the changes kept coming. The pawn's initial two-square move, which had been an optional rule in some places, became standard. This opened up the game immediately. To compensate for this, a new rule was invented, en passant. This allowed a pawn that had just advanced two squares to be captured by an enemy pawn as if it had only moved one. It's a weird rule, I know, but it was necessary to maintain the balance of the game. Another new rule introduced was castling. This single move allowed a player to develop their rook and get their king to safety all at once. It dramatically sped up the process of securing the king and connecting the rooks, again contributing to a much faster, more dynamic game. Finally, pawn promotion was supercharged. Before, a pawn reaching the other side of the board could only promote to the weak counselor piece. Now, it could become a queen, the most powerful piece on the board. These changes, happening all around the same time in the late 1400s, created the game of chess as we know it. The balance of power between the pieces was completely redrawn. The game became much more tactical, and checkmates could happen much more quickly, often in the early stages of the game. This is the version of chess that would stabilize and become the international standard, the game of Philidor, Morphy, and every grandmaster since. So, modern chess is born, and for the next couple of hundred years, it's played in coffee houses and clubs across Europe. But the 19th century is when things get serious. This is the era when chess starts to organize itself into a formal sport. The Romantic era of chess, as it's often called, was all about dashing, sacrificial attacks. Players like Adolf Anderssen and Paul Morphy were famous for their brilliant, swashbuckling style. Winning wasn't enough. You had to win with beauty. The biggest development was the rise of chess clubs. Cities like London, Paris, and Vienna became hotbeds of chess activity. These clubs weren't just places to play. They were centers for study and analysis. Players would gather to discuss opening theory, analyze famous games, and test their skills against each other. This created a much more competitive and structured environment for the game to grow. It's out of this club culture that the idea of formal competition really takes hold. Then, in 1851, the first major international chess tournament was held in London. This was a landmark event. For the first time, the best players from different countries, France, Germany, Hungary, England, were all brought together in one place to battle it out for supremacy. The tournament was won by the German master Adolf Anderssen, who became widely regarded as the strongest player in the world.